Former Cuban President Raul Castro indicted in the U.S. over the 1996 fatal downing of 2 civilian planes operated by exiles of the country.
Montenegro marks 20 years of independence from a union with Serbia this week, eyeing integration into the EU as its next milestone.
The European Union has vowed to stand firm with its strategy to squeeze Russia's war economy as the United Kingdom scrambles to reassure its allies that its latest decisions fall short of lifting sanctions. London caused confusion on Tuesday when it published an open-ended license allowing the imports of diesel and jet fuel made from Russian crude and other countries, such as Turkey and India, where the oil is purchased at discounted prices. A separate license was also made available, which enables the provision of short-term service contracts with Russia's Sakhalin-2 and Yamal LNG projects until January 2027. The publication caught Brussels by surprise, who refrained from commenting on their allies' move, but stressed their continued commitment to banning Russian energy.
We remain committed to our sanctions on imports of Russian oil and gas, and we need to reiterate the call for Russians not to be benefiting from the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. It's too ironic.
The UK, however, sought to portray the debacle as a case of bad communication.
What we announced yesterday was a strong new package of new sanctions, going well beyond existing sanctions. So it's a new package. This includes new bans on maritime services on LNG and new bans on refined oil products from Russia. We also issued 2 targeted short-term licenses to phase the new sanctions in and to protect UK consumers.
Ukraine said it was clarifying with the UK what the new move would entail, noting that it was concerned with the added revenues it may generate for Moscow's budget. The news from London also comes just one day after U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed Washington will extend its waiver on Russian oil at sea for the 3rd time this year.
The U.S. Justice Department on Wednesday indicted 94-year-old former Cuban President Raul Castro on murder charges. Raul Castro, who is the brother of the late Fidel Castro, is accused over the 1996 downing of a plane that carried critics of the Cuban state. An unsealed indictment accuses him and others of conspiracy to kill Americans, among other charges.
Today, we are announcing an indictment charging Raul Castro and several others with conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals. Mr. Castro and the others are charged with additional crimes as well, including destruction of aircraft and 4 individual counts of murder.
Current Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel denounced the indictment, calling the charges a political maneuver devoid of any legal foundation. Raul Castro succeeded his brother Fidel as president of Cuba and oversaw a historic 2015 rapprochement with the United States under Barack Obama that Donald Trump later reversed. Tensions between Washington and Havana have spiked in recent months since U.S. forces ousted Cuba's regional ally, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, and then imposed a painful energy blockade on the already economically struggling island nation. Speaking after the indictment, U.S. President Donald Trump said there was no need for escalation with Cuba.
An air raid alert was issued on Wednesday morning across parts of Lithuania, with authorities urging people to take shelter. Vilnius airport was briefly closed due to the alert, which was lifted after less than an hour at 11 in the morning. The country's defense ministry said NATO Baltic air policing had been activated after a suspected drone had been detected approaching from Belarus near to the border. Such alerts have become increasingly common in Baltic states, such as Estonia and Finland, due to Ukraine stepping up strikes in the nearby St. Petersburg region. This, however, was the first time in an EU and NATO member state since Russia began its invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Latvia's Prime Minister stepped down last week after a political row over her response to drones crash landing in the country. In a statement posted on social media soon after the alert, European Commission President von der Leyen placed responsibility on the drone alerts with Russia and Belarus, declaring that Europe would respond with unity and strength.
Portuguese people are among the Europeans most eager to travel in 2026, according to Europe Assistance Annual Summer Vacation Barometer. Despite the unstable geopolitical climate, there are still those who choose to travel abroad.
Estou a planear ir de férias para Cabo Verde, que é a minha terra natal. Eu acho que esta guerra tem influência em bastantes coisas, principalmente no preço dos bilhetes, que ficou exorbitante.
However, the Portuguese show a greater preference for traveling within the country, especially to the beaches of Algarve, with a slight decrease in international travel. The war in the Middle East seems to have dampened some travelers' interest in going abroad, mainly due to financial constraints and increased safety concerns.
Planeio de férias e, portanto, já tenho marcado as férias para o Algarve, portanto, para Portugal, porque penso que agora é um pouco complicado ir para fora. Os combustíveis contextualizam a economia neste momento e, portanto, face à situação que se avizinha nos próximos tempos, também mantemos as férias cá em Portugal para evitar o menos custos possíveis.
Condiciona um bocadinho, não pensava ir a uma viagem rápida, mas já não vou, tenho medo. Não. E além disso também estão muito caras as viagens e os alojamentos, tudo.
Não é a altura, eu acho que nós estamos a atravessar uma fase de... Pronto, há o conflito, não é? Pronto, mundial, há as guerras, e isso sobe os preços, o custo de vida está muito mais alto, as coisas custam muito mais. E por isso mais difícil é fazer férias.
Inflation remains the main reason holding people back when making plans. Portugal is the European country where this fear is most pronounced, and it's also the European country where high prices have the greatest impact on the budgets set aside for leisure.
Montenegro marks 20 years of independence from a union with Serbia this week, with concerts and various celebrations being held in the capital Podgorica and other towns across the country. Having already joined NATO in 2017, the country's next milestone is full integration into the European Union, according to the president.
Support for EU in Montenegro is very strong. It's currently at about 80%. 80% of the citizens of Montenegro support Montenegro's EU accession. And this is ultimately what really makes Montenegro a resilient future member state of the EU.
Montenegro is considered a front-runner for EU membership among the 6 countries in the Western Balkans. The EU has formed a working group to draft an accession treaty, a signal that membership remains within reach.
What was missing in the last 14 years, we have to provide now just in the 6 months, So it's really demanding, but, the process is going on. So we are, with each closed negotiating chapters, we are a step closer to the European Union. So, as I said, I think this is a clear perspective, but it will probably take longer than 6 months.
EU officials are expected to reiterate the message at a meeting in the coastal Montenegrin town of Tivat in early June with the leaders of Western Balkan candidate nations, including Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Serbia and Kosovo.
For the first time, Athens is hosting a major exhibition dedicated to the extraordinary artist and performer Tilda Swinton, whose unforgettable screen presence has captivated audiences for decades. In the exhibition ongoing, Swinton brings together costumes, personal objects, photographs and film excerpts linked to the creative collaboration and friendships she has developed over the past 40 years with 8 influential figures from cinema and fashion.
What seems to happen is you're a young, emerging artist, you've had your first album, your first collection, your first film, your first book. You got there out of a web of friendship, a web of your family, a web of your university, your art school, your college, whatever. And then you're encouraged, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, by the record label or the gallerist or the film studio, to just go solo, to just separate yourself. It's important for you to brand yourself as a commodity. And so I thought, my show at I. This is what I could maybe offer as some way of being useful. A portrait of a different way of working, which happens to be accurate to my story.
The exhibition is a collaboration between Onassis Stegi and I Film Museum, where it was first presented. The acclaimed actress shares with visitors the defining moments and collaborations that have shaped her artistic journey, from her early work with Derek Jarman to her more recent projects with Pedro Almodóvar.
Derek Jarman always used to say, prepare to go to the set as if you're going to a party. And that was really how it was. And as we all know, a good party is a party, you don't want the host to be completely responsible for the energy in the room. You don't want a bunch of guests who stand around waiting for the host to tell them how to have a good time. A good party is shared, the energy is shared with everybody. Somebody puts on the music, somebody pours the drinks, somebody brings the food.
Tilda Swinton Ongoing runs until June 28th and is accompanied by a summer rooftop film screening program at Onassis Ready Cultural Center.